Nestled in the mountains lies Trem, a peaceful village of lush fields where locals greet each other, cows graze, and laundry is washed by the river. Dirt flies as the boy swings his hoe. Men haul stone carts and pry stumps while he keeps working, a man dragging a log in the background. Luca 10 says the same thing happens to him daily while working with the hoe. A tractor would make work easy, and as a reincarnated soul, he knows exactly how to handle it. Reincarnated with fuzzy memories, he only recalls his easy past life. Now, he's stuck in a world with zero technology. He twists his finger, but magic is real here as he twirls a stream of water. This world is just like his past life games. Dragons and mages loom as he swirls a water jet into a ball, swallows it, and sighs. In this world, almost everyone wields basic magic to control fire, water, earth, and wind. A light barrier shields the boy as he rallies everyone to keep pushing. Body-strengthening magic exists here, and while our MC grinds, the whole town hustles behind him, hauling carts to keep up. Sunset hits the mountains. MC hates his inconvenient rural life. Grandma herds pigs while a woman hangs laundry. This land is pure peace. He scans the massive fields and the village tucked against the mountains. Dad yells it's time to go and heads over. Luke stops, slings his hoe over his shoulder, and faces him. Luke's improving, so MC asks about his dad's work. He feels great and won't quit. Now they're prepping a magic bath at home. Leaving the fields, a man waves them off as father and son share a smile. Villagers wave and offer food as they head home, basket in hand. Edward and Luke return home to a cheering family. A girl and mother rush out as the boys joyfully shout, "We're home." Alice asks to bathe together, so Lucas preps the water. Mom worries he's tired, but Lucas insists on doing it himself to stay out of their way. Everyone's using Lucas' bathroom. Dad calls it a luxury, but he's already hooked. He invites his daughter, but she refuses, and Mom mocks his inability to wash others. Magic scales the water and his mind sets the heat. Villagers usually just use damp towels, but as Luca dials the bath, his sister charges in. Luke's past life bath memories made him hate the villagers' filthy washing habits. Fed up, he uses earth magic to turn the pantry into a bathroom, leaving his parents completely stunned. He can't remember how he did it, but his family loved the result. Alice asks for a repeat, he agrees, and begins manipulating the water. Luca uses magic to craft a water figure, narrating Sekitaro's birth under the great tree as he and his sister enjoy the show. Alice beams at the water man and the creatures surrounding her. He uses past life fairy tales to stage a water puppet show for his sister. Luca made this magic for his sister's smile, but it's way harder than it looks. Magic takes focus, but Luke's been training since birth, knowing he was reborn in another world. Reborn in a new world, his infant mind is razor sharp, but his past life is a total blank. Luca's mind is pure static, but he knows one thing for sure: something went horribly wrong. Luke's new parents use magic to raise him right. Sonia wipes him down post-bath, while Edward uses wind magic to dry him instantly. He gulps down his mother's milk, sensing the spark of magic for the first time. Baby Luke tested his magic, discovering that repetition boosted his mana until he finally hit total exhaustion. Luca sensed the entire world, feeling like he was soaring through the sky. Luca stares as Sonia and Edward weep with joy. He just narrowly escaped death. The priest arrived just in time to save the baby, and Luca never forgot his parents' pure joy that day. Projecting magic drains his internal power. Now he finally understands how the system works. Luca mastered environmental mana, turning water, earth, and air into pure, upgraded power. Reborn in a magic world, he masters spells for an easy life, leaving his sister in awe as he manipulates water figures. Luke trains magic daily to impress his sister, but Mom suddenly bursts in, scaring them both and calling it quits. Mom serves a feast while Luca stirs drinks with magic. The family digs in as Dad talks to Luke. Dad warns magic is for survival, not luxury baths. Luke knows to be careful with the Force, and when Dad checks in, he says he's fine. Luca asks if he messed up, but his dad just grins and says everything's fine. Dad praises his wife's cooking, but Alice says Mom's food easily beats his. Night falls, Luca lies in his sparse room, asking nothing more from his new life. His sister sleeps clutching her favorite bunny while his parents drink nearby. Luca's only dream is a peaceful future with his family. Sun's up, roosters crowing. Alice greets her parents, but her brother is nowhere to be found. Mom says Luca's already in the field, shocking Alice. Dad reveals he's training magic, so Edward heads out to check on him while his family wishes him luck. Luca hits the field to master earth magic, stretching his arms to recreate his water dolls using raw soil. She crafts a multi-part doll, magic snaps it into a battle stance, and it's ready. Dad asks if it's Earth magic, but Luca introduces Bon, a skeleton modeled after 3D games, and orders him to work. The doll swings its hoe as Luca explains it'll speed up the work. His dad watches in shock, stunned his son can already control magic this massive. The doll shatters, shocking Luke and his dad. His father critiques his balance, warning him to expect stares from the village despite Luke's optimism. Luca spends his days practicing magic in the countryside, raising his skeleton model while his dad greets the shouting villagers. Trame is a remote mountain village of 200 where the men work the fields. The Margrave built this village to farm magic herbs. These rare plants grow in special soil and are the key ingredient for magic medicine. To make farming easier for the village, Luca crafts a doll from the earth. Now it stands in the field, hoe in hand, ready to work. Luca names the earth doll Bon. Controlling him makes farming easy, and he's already hoeing the field while a chicken watches. Luca asks Lenel's take. She gushes that he looks cool. She's the chief's granddaughter and his childhood friend, basically family. The girl uses the bathroom too, reminding Leniel of Luca playing with Alice. Luca snaps it's training, not a game. The doll breaks and he admits she's a challenge. His childhood friend asks to see his water dolls, so Luke invites her to the bathroom. She's instantly flustered, picturing them together. She bolts in shame, face hidden and screaming her friend's name. Luca rubs his cheek, baffled by her bizarre behavior. Luca and Dad arrive home, announcing their return. Mom greets them, and the sister instantly drags Luca to the bathroom. Dad asks Alice to go out, but she refuses. He snaps, jealous she only chooses Luke. The son calls him out as Alice breaks down sobbing in the bathroom. Luca's confused, the doll is right there, but Alice wants a doll she can crush, not something cute. Luca finally gets it and apologizes. Luca remakes Alice's figurine and she loves the upgrade. His training worked, his dolls are finally becoming lifelike. He crafts a figure even more muscular than Alice's, questioning if these dolls are truly unlovely. Luca needs to redesign the ball, but more parts make control a nightmare. He can't handle them one by one, he has to master the whole thing at once. Luca cracked the secret, turning the doll into a mechanical man. Alice asked what was wrong, but Luca told her to ignore him. Controlling multiple parts is now effortless. Luke's doll blurs as everything clicks with minimal focus. His hard training finally paid off. Alice pouts, claiming her doll is cuter as it faces down Luke's muscular fighter. Luke's still baffled by magic and wants answers from the priest. Mom orders the kids out of the tub and they obey. Dad checks his son after a full day of water and earth magic, warning that mana isn't infinite and controlling earth dolls is a massive drain. Mom catches Luca with dolls, but he's not playing, he's trying to help everyone. Mom supports him, but the family is still worried sick. Luca thanks them, insisting he's fine and won't die like he almost did as a baby. The family's reeling. Alice sobs, terrified her brother will die. Mom calls it a joke, but Dad screams for his son. Suddenly, the weight of Luca's words hits him. Tension explodes. Mom glares at her son while clutching her sobbing daughter, as Dad fumes with worry for his boy. Dad warns Luca never joke about death. Luca apologizes, so Dad ruffles his hair and sends the kids to bed. Alice weeps, vowing to only sleep with her brother. Luca apologizes, promising safety. The family head dismisses the worry, but his wife stays anxious, and my parents call. Luca and his dad wave toward the fields. Dad shoulders a hoe, Luca carries the food, and Sonia and Alice follow. Workers wave as Luke and his dad head out. They trade words of encouragement, but Luke's mission today is simple: recreate that water doll. Luke builds a massive, reinforced version of his bathroom doll, swinging its hoe with enough power to send dirt flying everywhere. The doll hammers the ground with insane speed. Luca loves the power, but Alice would be terrified. He commands his creation with just one hand. Luke eyes the fenced forest. Massive trees block his sight, but he senses something approaching while the doll works tirelessly. Luca blasts a wind magic alarm, alerting the men. His dad rushes over, and Luca points him straight toward the forest. In a world of magic and monsters, 5 forest wolves emerge. More are closing in, and they're ready to strike. Stunned they escaped in daylight, he warns the group and sends Luke to get the priest to evacuate. Luke's worried for his dad, but he's staying to fight. Edward orders the archers to hold the fence, using earth magic to hurl stones at the monsters as the men rally behind him. Lucas insists on fighting the monsters, but his dad ships him to the village before he can even object. His father demands absolute obedience, leaving the boy stunned. Dad smiles, vowing to protect the family at all costs. Now he trusts Luca to guard Alice and Mom. The man laughs, boasting forest wolves are no match for him. Luca smiles, but before leaving he steps in to help, leaving his father stunned by his son's actions. Archers charge as a soldier warns Captain Ed they're low on arrows. Ed confirms the supply is secured, while Luke sprints to the village priest. Roger's stunned by the massive arrow stockpile, enough to ensure not a single monster survives. Roger counts over 1,000 arrows. Ed is stunned by his son's power, but Roger's even more shocked Luca did it. Edward orders Roger to hand out arrows and drop the captain title. Roger gets the message, finally calling Luke's father by his name. Luke bursts into the church, screaming that mages have invaded. The priest stops him, confused by the mention of megastars. MC says his dad's ready to fight. His shocked grandparents offer to help, but they must warn the headman first. The Holy Father claims everything's fine, but Luke insists his dad ordered an evacuation. The priest demands to see for himself as they head outside. The priest scouts the battlefield with magic, reporting that Edward's team is winning. Luca is stunned by the range, but it's just body enhancement magic. Edward grips his sword as the archers draw back. The monsters bare their fangs, ready to pounce. Luke's father fronts the line, sword aimed at the pack. Archers fire at full draw, raining arrows and stones on the wolves. Arrows and stones strike true, wiping out the wolves. The men roar, hoisting weapons to celebrate their victory over Magsbury, as the Holy Father credits the massive volley for repelling the monster assault. Luca is stoked his arrows worked. The Holy Father's stunned by the massive supply, but Luca admits he just kept crafting, leaving the father reeling at his insane effort. The Holy Father praises Luke and summons him for a serious talk. Luke accepts. The monsters are dead, and the church's grandpa claims he only wanted to help. Luca spots his dad and friend approaching with wide grins. He praises their success, and his dad laughs, calling it a total breeze. Roger credits Luca's arrows as the men greet Linnell's father. The Holy Father offers aid, but the men laugh. This fight was easier than farming. The men are already harvesting skins, fangs, and meat for the village. Luke's dad and Roger report the news to the Holy Father, and he agrees to join them. Luke asks what's next. Dad says work's finished, go home, rest, and tell Mom everything. Luke waves the men off as they head out. Roger warns the men, monsters are attacking in broad daylight. Tostin blames the magic, and the Holy Father says the beasts sense their power instinctively. Roger asks if they're after the magic herb, but the Holy Father reveals these predators are hunting something else entirely. Result, the Holy Father thinks Luke's the bait. His massive high-grade mana makes him a gourmet snack for wild beasts. The Holy Father thinks Luke's the bait. Luke's dad storms out demanding food, seizing the priest's collar as the crowd watches in shock. Roger yells his rank, but the headman calls Edward a kid and tells him to pipe down. The Holy Father apologizes for misspeaking, but Luke's dad is already shaking with gritted teeth. Wait, Luke's father clenching. He steps down, apologizing for his outburst and eyeing Edward with concern. Roger and the headman greet him formally, but he shuts it down. He's not on his father's land anymore. Back home, Luca explains the field incident to his stunned family. His father sits puzzled, realizing his new mission, protect the village and his kin. Lucas returns home, cutting off his mom's questions to explain he was released early because the monster corpses aren't fully sorted yet. Luca asks for Alice, but Mom says she's asleep. Lenniel stopped by to help and play, and now she's in the bathroom washing up. MC walks in on a flustered Linnell. He offers to show her the water dolls she wanted, and her confused scream echoes through the house. Mom scolds Luke for barging into the girl's bathroom, so he promises to knock next time. The girl forgives the surprise, while Mom calls her son a total idiot. Lenniel thanks Luca for slaying the monsters, but he plays it off, claiming the fight ended before he even reached the church. Mentioning the church, he suddenly remembers the Holy Father's summons. Luke hits the church under clear skies, met instantly by the Holy Father and a sweet-smiling girl. Luke greets the father and sister. The father thanks her for the promised pair. MC admits he forgot his promise and wronged Linnell, shocking the nun beside the Holy Father. Luca spirals, panicking over his failing memory. He knows something is wrong but can't explain it. His family watches warily as he screams through gritted teeth. The Holy Father sits beside Luke, gripping his hand and shoulder. He reassures him everything's fine, and a surge of warmth calms Luke's nerves. Luke finds peace in the Holy Father's magic. He tells his dad it felt weird, but Dad says kids are sensitive and to stay calm. Luke then turns to his sister. Sister Ulrika is devastated, tears streaming in total shock. She never saw this coming. The Holy Father calls for Ulrika, but she apologizes and bolts for a break. MC asks about his sister, but the Holy Father says she's no normal kid. She's a sensitive, special case who's only grown more tearful with age. Luke asks why he was summoned. The Holy Father credits his insane magic, but Luke is completely clueless. The priest warns his massive mana lures monsters from beyond the barrier. Luke finally gets the message. Lucas thinks his mana lured yesterday's monsters, but the Holy Father isn't 100% sure. The priest shrugs it off, he just wanted Luke to master mana storage, and the kid's already a pro. Luke thanks his dad, the Holy Father kept his power hidden, only using magic when necessary. Self-study has limits, but Luca's been training since childhood. The Holy Father unleashes his power, leaving Luke frozen and mesmerized. Luke's stunned by the father's hidden magic, but the old man insists Luke is the stronger one. Seeing Luca can sense mana, the Holy Father offers to teach him concealment. Luca thanks him. The Holy Father claims magic flows through every living thing to fuel their spells. He folds his arms and a thread of fire ignites. Father reveals the bow recharges by absorbing and mixing magic from the air, making Luca realize his childhood training was a lie. Clueless about New World names, baby Luke invents his own. Chakra gathers power, cycle draws it from outside, and oscillation is magic itself. His titles have new meanings. Chakra is compression, circulation is absorption, and fluctuations are mixing. Luke clutches his head, overwhelmed. The Holy Father's trick is simple. Wrap the bow's massive energy in a thin, invisible magic film to hide its true power. The priest asks a pale Luke if he's okay, but Lucas insists he's fine. He finally gets the cover-up. Father challenges Luke to test his concealment skills on the spot. Luke is hesitant but accepts. Luke channels his energy, mirroring the Holy Father's concealment. The man watches closely, clearly impressed by Luke's perfect form. The Holy Father stroked his chin, noting Luke's concealment was solid. Luca thanks his dad, vows to keep training, and bolts home as his father tells him to stay safe. The Holy Father wonders what happened. Luke looks way too depressed. The priest swings open the iron-trimmed door. It's effortless, but it lets out a sharp creak. Behind the door, a massive tree stands in a sunlit flower field. The man confirms Luca left and turns to Vulcan. Identifying her as a priestess, the man asks why she's crying. She's devastated over Luca's injuries and defends the child's innocence while the Holy Father watches wearily. Touching the trunk, the priestess warns the sacred tree can't save him. The father stares up at the canopy. Welkin explains this sacred tree protects the land it's rooted in. The girl says the tree was meant to hide his magic, but the Holy Father admits the barrier couldn't mask Luke's power forever. Dad thinks Luke's just got massive mana, but the priestess corrects him. It's not quantity, it's quality. Actually, it's beyond that, pure, pristine power. The bow's light pierced the barrier, alerting the monsters. Father doesn't blame the priestess, who's just thankful he taught the boy to hide. It's safer this way. She drops her headdress, revealing elf ears. She vows to guard the tree with the Holy Father, keeping the village at peace. Welkin calls the half-elf a young rookie, but the Holy Father jokes that makes him a literal baby. The elf girl smiles sweetly, asking if the father just called her old, leaving him stunned and scrambling to backtrack. The priestess says it's fine. Elves take pride in their age, growing slow like trees, and that's a massive plus. Wilkin explains they look young, but they're ancient to humans and mere seedlings to other elves. She reveals high elves are the ancestors, eternal beings who look younger and barely age. The priestess warns the Holy Father, don't laugh at the high elf's looks or he's dead instantly. He takes the hint. She's not the only one to thank. While the Holy Father stays confused, she credits the man who found the sacred tree and begged the elves for a priestess. The priestess credits the village's survival to this man. The Holy Father agrees, thanking the sacred tree, the priestess, and the Margrave. Luca lies in a clearing, realizing every spell already has a name. Ashamed of his teenage stupidity, he rolls on the ground, clutching his head in shame. Luca sits, instantly combining compression, absorption, and mixing. A blinding light erupts, but he triggers concealment to hide the flash from the monsters. MC's spell barrage on Luke creates a mysterious round stone on the outskirts, leaving Luca completely baffled. MC sighs in relief, glad he finally vented. Feeling better, he heads home as it gets late, leaving his created stone behind. Luke gets home late after studying magic at church. Dad wants a demo, but Luke's too exhausted. Mom then mentions Alice is waiting for him in the bathroom. Too tired for their usual routine, the boy gives Alice extra doll time. She sighs sadly while their parents beam at the friendly siblings. The wife asks about their son, but the husband explains his concealment spell is keeping him safe. Sun's out, roosters crowing. Wife slices apples with a smile while the husband stares, rubbing his chin, leg over his chair. Luke learned concealment from the Holy Father yesterday, but isn't sure he's mastered it. He reaches out to demonstrate his progress. Dad says at 20 paces, you're invisible to pros. Luke's skeptical, but the man confirms it's a feat even he'd miss. MC wants a new way to mask his mana, leaving his dad stunned and wondering how that's even possible. Luca's found a breakthrough in his failure. To form a mana shell, you first need to create space. He's visibly hyped. He creates a space, drains its mana into his body, and wraps the void in a shell, making his bow glow. The Holy Father's concealment uses one shell, but Luke's doubling it. He's creating two shells at once, focused entirely on success. His parents stare in horror. Dad hits the floor, slipper flying, while Mom drops her apple in shock. Luca just wants to know if they like his perfected stealth. Dad says the boy's gone, Mom panics, and Luca waves it off, until a massive scream echoes through the house, shocking them all. Alice rushes to her brother, sobbing. Luca's confused but reaches out to her. She begs her brother not to vanish, but Luca promises he's not going anywhere. Dad's stunned. Luca's concealment is so perfect he literally vanished. Mom warns him not to waste it, and Luca promises to save his power for when it counts. Luca learns Alice can sense his magic from afar. When Dad asks where he is, she reveals she always knows his location. Alice reveals where she senses Luke while he's away, pointing to where he always appears. The family is stunned as a house suddenly materializes. Dad, as stunned his daughter, senses her brother from miles away, pinpointing that lonely house atop the distant mountain peak. Edward's shocked Alice senses her brother's mana from the fields, but Lucas is just proud of her. Dad laughs, claiming her as his and Sonia's daughter, and Mom agrees. Lucas hides his mana to dodge monsters, but his sister keeps questioning the trick. Luke activates a basic concealment, masking his presence. His power vanishes, but Alice doesn't mind. That's how she senses her brother. Luke asks if his stealth is that bad, but his shocked dad calls him a natural. Mom gasps, explaining Alice just senses his massive mana. Alice blushes, confessing her love. Luca nods, thanking her with a head pat. Proud of his brilliant kids, the man beams, certain his own father would have been just as proud. Inside, a voice calls for breakfast before the father and son head out to work the fields. Flashback to Luke's dad. Drunks ask if his flowers are for a lover, but he just smiles, reminding them drinking in the city center is banned. They can't meet Margarb's son in the city, laughing that he's just a concubine's kid, a commoner just like them. The guys mock his education, demanding he marry his girl so they can finally drink. He brushes them off, but realizes it's time to tie the knot. Shadows haunt his memories, mocking him as a concubine's brat who killed his mother during birth. His dad says ignore the haters because he's his son, and Ed agrees to tune them out. Tiny Edward huddles under a blanket, wondering why his mother died and left him alone. Clutching his bouquet, he walks on, oblivious to the world as he dreams of starting a family. He snaps back to the street as a familiar voice screams for someone to stop. A man grabs Sanitka, swearing everything's fine, but she struggles to get free. He vows to love her forever, but she shuts him down. She's already taken. Ed rockets up, decking the guy and sending him flying. Sonia flees in tears, calling for Edward. Ed's fuming, but he's got a girl to protect. Edward squares up against 3 drawn swords. Sonia shouts his name as the man he struck rages, demanding to know who he thinks he is. Edward glares, but Sonia warns him to back off. He has no idea who this guy is. Nearby, a massive cathedral houses a giant tree at its core. The victim's burly father demands the Margrave's son face punishment, while his bandaged kid sits cross-legged nearby. Edward eyes the next Viscount, head bowed in shame beside his father as the old man begs for mercy, claiming his son regrets everything. Dad discharges his son, exiling him to the forbidden borderlands to pay compensation while Edward sits in silence. Edward's grounded until he pays up. The forbidden lands are a death trap ruled by elves and dragons, and the victim is loving every second. The head priest invokes divine law, binding Edward with a contract spell that traps him in the forbidden lands until his debt is paid. Edward's father watches as his son faces the priest. Asked if he accepts, Edward puts a hand to his chest and agrees. Fists clenched, he shouts that this isn't enough to pay for his guilt, while his stunned father reaches out but freezes. The kid demands forbidden land goods and death for tax evasion. His dad calls him an idiot, but the Margrave agrees. Fuming, the Margrave yields. The Viscount tries to protest, but his son shuts him down, declaring the matter settled. Surrounded, the Holy Father invokes the God of the Covenant to cast a contract spell on Edward, flooding the massive balcony room with blinding light. Edward's father admits his son's actions. He signals for a drink, and Toshtin is already there, serving him a bottle from a tray. Edward sits before his father, looking guilty, and sincerely apologizes for everything that happened today. Dad chuckles, praising his son for protecting the woman he loves. Edward warns that conquering the forbidden land of elves and dragons is suicide. He asks his dad about the legends, who says, "Anger a half-elf, nothing happens, anger a full elf and..." The father warns that angering a high elf means instant genocide. A shaken Edward agrees. Elves are a lethal threat to humanity. Edward's dad turns with a drink, asking Ulrika if it's true. She confirms it's mostly real, leaving Edward wide-eyed and stunned. Ulrika, a half-elf, greets Edward. She isn't vindictive like the others, so he's got nothing to fear. Edward greets Mrs. Half-Elf, calling it an honor. His dad sips his drink, admitting he summoned her, while the butler watches them both. The man found a sacred tree on his land. Edward's stunned. Is this the world tree branch protecting the entire world? The half-elf reveals Christoffel needs a priestess for the sacred tree, so Edward's father offers Dorica to pay their compensation. Dad says selling the magic grass will clear the debt. Edward realizes it was all his father's plan. The Margrave laughs, proving why he's in charge. The Margrave is stunned. The Viscount's fool is even dumber about the death penalty than he ever expected. Margraf warns he'll soon pay for his big mouth. The man sips his drink while his butler looms behind him, dead serious. Father sends Toshtin and the best farmers with Ulrika to transform the forbidden land. Edward thanks him, then brings up Sonia, making father curious about his plan. Edward suggests a breakup, fearing they'll never see each other again. Dad tells Ed to say it to her in person. Ed's baffled, staring at the door in shock. Ulrika points to the heartbroken girl entering. Edward screams her name, while Sonia clutches her chest and whispers his. She blames herself, but Edward takes the fall, ordering her to stay while he leaves. Sonia dives into her lover's arms, vowing to follow him, as Edward catches her by shouting her name. Tears streaming, she tells Edward she needs him to be happy. They lock eyes, his gaze filled with warmth. She vows to stay with Edward forever, and he's just as desperate for it. Margrave demands one last task before the Forbidden Lands. Toshtin agrees, hand to chest and eye covered. Inside the church, Edward and Sonia exchange vows, swearing to love and protect each other even in Forbidden Lands. Everyone cheers. Sonia weeps for joy while Edward smiles beside her. Guests raise their mugs. Edward's father wipes away proud tears, and Ulrika beams for the couple. 1 year later, Edward bursts into the family home, gasping for air and screaming his wife's name. Inside, a priestess and an old woman wait with the mother. She tells her husband it's a boy, and the newborn starts wailing. The room cheers for Edward and Sonia. A man tearfully thanks Sonia as she cradles his son, the priestess smiling at the heartwarming scene. Edward smiles, scooping up the baby and praising his son. He cradles the infant in his massive hands while Sonia watches, laughing contentedly. Edward's blonde and Sonia's brunette, yet the kid has black hair. Still, the boy stares at his father, mesmerized. Grandma smiles, noting kids are rarely born unlike their parents. The priestess snaps, asking Edward if his wife is cheating. Shaken, he stumbles back, swearing he'd never doubt her. He hoists the child high, naming him Luca as his wife smiles from her bed. This is their new home, and Edward finally has a family to call his own. Edward's plowing when the men rush him, stumbling over his old title. The headman delivers a bombshell. Luke's life is in danger, leaving Edward stunned. The Holy Father warns Luke is dying from magic exhaustion. Inside, Edward screams, demanding to know what that means. The priest warns their son is dying. Edward demands a cure for Luca as Sonia breaks down in disbelief. Combined parental magic awakens the child. Sonia and Edward confirm their powers, and the Holy Father guarantees he'll wake up. Edward and Sonia flank Luke, flooding him with mana. Edward begs his son to hold on, dumping every drop of magic into him. He won't let even God take his family. Luke wakes to his parents' joyful tears. Edward vows to protect him as the entire village stretches out below. Luke is all grown up. He raises his hands, telling his parents it's time to go, looking dead calm. Parents wave as Luca and Lentil trade greetings, both clutching small bags. Sonia reveals Tostin's granddaughter and Roger's daughter are friends with her son. Rogers brought the girl here after her mother died. Luke's still acting weird, shocking Edward. He asks if Sonia means his infancy, but his wife says they already solved that mystery. Luke hits the fields, treating magic like a brutal workout while locals watch him mumble. To him, this intense grind is the peak of his new life. Sonia breaks down because their son never smiles like other kids, leaving a clueless Edward totally lost. Luke's mom warns he isn't smiling, and his blank stare proves it. Edward thought family meant perfection, but he missed his son's suffering. He pulls his wife close to calm. Edward and Sonia bring Luke to the Holy Father and priestess near a sacred tree. Sister Ulrika greets him, but Luke already knows her name. Luke marvels at the beautiful sacred tree, his gaze locked on the crown. They trick Luca into eating a rigged ball disguised as sacred honey. He loves the taste, and the laughing priest demands he unleash his full power. Shocked, the priestess sends Luca and Sonia home but orders Edward to stay. Sonia thanks her and leaves, while a baffled Edward wonders why he's the only one left. The Holy Father is stunned as the priestess lunges at Luke's dad, her headdress flying as she grabs his throat before he can even react. Ulrika questions the bow's magic. It's no divine blessing, but a devil's contract. Edward grits his teeth, demanding to know what her sister meant. Edward denies the devil's contract on his bow, swearing he'd never betray his son. The priestess still chokes Luke's father as the Holy Father speaks up. The priestess frees the man and apologizes for Edward. Edward shrugs it off, glad they reached an understanding, as the Holy Father looms behind Ulrika. He asks about the devil's contract, but she claims she sensed something inside him. Negative energy is fused with magic. The priestess says once the onion ran dry, a crack let the darkness in. The Holy Father confirms Luke drained his magic and his childhood. Edward shouts that his magic and wife saved him, while the man screams as the truth finally hits. Edward freezes, the contract magic is bound to him, and Luca's fate is his fault. The priest finally understands. By transferring mana to his son, Luke unknowingly sealed the contract inside himself. Edward blames himself for Lucas's fate, haunted by the Viscount's son threatening the death penalty for breaking their contract. Holy Father hopes for a cure, but Ulrika warns she'll fail, risking his and Luke's lives. Edward asks for a plan, but she tells him to just watch. The priestess says once Edward pays for the Forbidden Land goods, Luke's contract will vanish. Ulrich's sister says this beats canceling the contract alone. Luke's family finally has his back, and Edward looks dead serious. Ulrika vows her full support, and Edward bows in gratitude. Edward, Sonia, and Luca head for a picnic. Sonia's got a hat, Edward's hauling a massive pack, and Dad thinks everything's fine. Edward takes Luca fishing, helping his son land a catch. He's certain he'll always be there to protect him. Edward takes the reins with a nervous Luca, swearing they'll be safe as long as they're together. His dad tells Luke to ignore everyone who looks down on him. Luke is Edward's beloved son, and the family is finally home. They share a meal under a tree as Mom smiles and Dad pats Luke's head. Luke calls out, "Edward." Sonia smiles at her family, announcing it's a girl, but the baby in her arms immediately erupts into screams. Luca's stunned as Edward names the baby Alice. While the priestess and Grandma beam, Edward hands Luca his brand new little sister. The boy sings Alice to sleep. Time skips, Alice grows, Luca plays with her toys, and soon Luke is walking his sister through the grass. Edward and Sonia watch, overjoyed. Luca finally smiles, using magic to craft water figures on the ground. Alice loves it, reaching out to touch his liquid creations. Edward thanks Sonia and his kids. Contract magic can't break their bond, they're his family. Tears hit the floor as he breaks down. Edward's beaming, finally happy. He pulls his family close as Sonia clutches Alice and Luca looks up at his dad. They're finally whole. The men stare in confusion as Luke commands 3 dolls at once, proving his training paid off, until a sudden beep interrupts his work. Luke uses wind magic for sound commands, aiming to compose full melodies soon. Edward scratches his head, noting Luke's love for practice. The man screams it's too noisy. Luca recoils, Luke's dolls mimicking his terror, while the man behind Edward smiles nervously. Edward snaps, wind magic is for emergencies, not pranks. Luke apologizes, but his dad orders him to apologize to the villagers instead. Luca apologizes and the men forgive him. Seeing his son's massive magic growth, Edward realizes Luke is a prodigy. It's time for his training to start. Inside the church, the Holy Father welcomes the crowd for a life-changing sermon, standing at the pedestal with Sister Ulrika by his side. Sonia grins, watching Luke, Alice, and Leno on the bench. In this world, magic is everything. Luke stares at his father and the priestess, stunned. The boy claims he can use magic without lessons. The Holy Father agrees, magic needs little training. The crowd hangs on every word. The Holy Father asks about Aiden's magic, so the boy demonstrates a simple spell and burns him. His dad strikes him instantly, yelling at his stupid son. Priest calls it everyday magic, but its true name is creation magic. It commands water, fire, earth, and air, and anyone can use it. Luca and his sister mirror each other, as he realizes his water and earth dolls were just everyday magic. The Holy Father reveals other magic exists and reaches for Adam's hand, shocking Adna. Life magic heals everyone but the user, proven when the Holy Father mends Adam's fingers after a basic magic mishap. He thanks the Holy Father, pain-free at last. Luca ponders, realizing even magic has distinct subtypes. The Holy Father claims the God of life wields life magic, then farts and calls it simple as the crowd bursts into laughter. Dad breaks down magic types, ordering everyone to master amplification. All eyes are on the Holy Father. Aiden claims he's mastered the game, but his dad reveals it's no enhancement, leaving the boy stunned. The Holy Father says the boy only boosted his mana, but Adon thinks he's joking. Wanting to look cool, he asks his dad for the secret. Father says training is the key. Once Adon feels a click, he's broken his magical limits and unlocked new skills. Luke realizes fusing his starter dolls triggered a new skill, evolving separate parts into one unified body. Luke's clueless about the Holy Father's skill talk. He farts while Lineal watches the daydreamer with interest. Luca recognizes the name from his past life's games. Alice is out cold, but her mom stares at Luke in shock. The Holy Father asks the crowd, who knows the god behind this strengthening magic. Aiden guesses it's amplification magic, but his dad shuts him down. Now Luke's locked in, racking his brain for the Holy Father's real answer. Sonia cradles a sleeping Alice while Renail shocks Luca, claiming her magic comes from the god of power. Her father confirms the truth, and Luca's praise leaves the girl blushing. Body and reflex buffs are vital. Only one nation calls this magic ki and aura. The Holy Father explains the magics of creation, life, and power. His sister stands behind him as the crowd listens intently. Dad says magic this powerful only exists in legends. Creation magic grants absolute power over the world. Armed with a staff and book, the magician commands even the birds. The Holy Father reveals light and dark attributes tied to the four basics, totaling 6: water, fire, air, earth, light, and dark. Spells, magic circles, or secret techniques, there are tons of ways to find your attribute. The Holy Father calls creation magic witchcraft, ruled by the god of creation. The priest explains creation magic needs nothing, it's powered purely by the user's imagination. The Holy Father says mages know exactly how convenient magic is. Luke wonders if his thought-manifesting magic is actually creation magic, recalling his water dolls and mud workers. Dan asks the Holy Father, what's the difference between everyday and creation magic if both make fire and water? The Father praises the sharp question. Father says the creation god's magic and gifts exist to make life easy for everyone. This power creates fire, water, earth, and air, but most mistake it for daily life, like warming by a fire or drinking water. The Father sparks a candle with his finger, explaining that everyday magic follows strict laws, and he's about to prove it. Lighting a candle is easy, but creation magic is a different beast. Luca lines in while his sister sleeps. Using creation magic, the Holy Father manifests a firebird and launches it straight ahead, leaving Aiden in awe. Drain the mana and the fire vanishes instantly. Dad snaps his fingers and the firebird is gone. Using basic magic, he conjures a glass of water and downs it for an instant refresh. Creation magic water is useless. It's like drinking air, you'll never quench your thirst. Aiden claims everyday magic beats creation magic. His dad warns against arrogance, but the Holy Father sides with the boy. Everyday magic is the power of life itself, a gift from the gracious goddess who created their world. Luke's shock turns to realization. He finally gets it. Mana runs out, the object vanishes, but there's a catch. Even at 0 mana, Luca's clay dolls don't vanish, they just freeze. Luke is proud of his work, but his dad thinks they're creepy. He sticks to everyday magic over creation magic, leaving Luca totally baffled. Luke is clueless but grateful as the room laughs. The Holy Father reveals the catch. These magics use different parts of the body. Life's power fills the crown and heart. Covenant sits in the forehead, creation in the throat, and power above the navel. Below, a mana core directs energy through the body. Aiden's still clueless, making everyone laugh. The Holy Father explains that mastering magic types is the secret to leveling up fast. Creation magic, aka everyday magic, wields the 4 elements and persists even without the caster's support. Aura, the magic of power, supercharges your body and sharpens every sense. Life magic heals, but creation magic, the magic of everything, wields all 6 attributes and vanishes without a mana recharge. The Holy Father demands a magic display, shocking Luke. Elniel wishes him luck, Aiden warns him not to get burned, and Luke simply nods. The Holy Father orders Luke to cast any spell, so he picks something basic. The Pope's just testing his growth speed, and the sister sees right through the plan. Lucas crafts a water doll for Alice as the priest and priestess watch intently. She snaps awake, calling her doll Poon. The Holy Father praises Luke's incredible everyday magic. Stunned by his father's words, Luca questions if his power is even creation magic. The priestess shows Luke how everyday magic creates shapes like spheres and cubes, a gift from the creator to simplify life, as she effortlessly spins them around her finger. Luke shuts his eyes, realizing he's mastered everyday magic and can now shape it at will. Basic magic can't recreate the Holy Father's firebird. Luca claims everyday magic beats animating human dolls. His sister stares back, completely clueless. The priestess is stunned. This magic is the creator's divine power, far beyond any human. Only a god has the right to use it to create life. A farmer storms the church with a mysterious stone Luke manifested in a fit of rage. Found on the village outskirts, the man swears he's never seen anything like it. Luca is stunned to recognize his stone. The Holy Father questions the jewel-like rock, and the priestess demands a closer look. Ulrika touches the stone, confirming it reacts to mana. The father calls the stone unusual, but the sister insists it's harmless. Ulrika insists they keep the strange stone, leaving the group baffled. Luke forgot the stone, rushing ahead on raw emotion. The priest ends the talk. Luca cringes, remembering the stone on the field. The Holy Father asks about Luke's magic. The priestess calls the bow's power insane, and kids swarm the boy. Creating a human, Sister Ulrika smiles, dismissing it as a wild childhood fantasy. Luke's mud doll lies there, but the priestess insists creating human life is impossible. At Margrave Ekelm's estate, a terrified man delivers grim news. After 10 years, they've finally recovered the Viscount's son's body. The Margrave offers condolences after the Viscount's son's carriage plunged into a monster-infested magic forest. The poor man has suffered enough. The Viscount asks to build his son a grave, and the Margrave agrees instantly. He wonders who's to blame for the accident, but it doesn't matter now. Margrave calls it a blessing since the son lived life to the fullest. He orders a burial with full honors, and the Viscount thanks him. The Margrave joins the wake while Nicholas sinks their next check with the Viscount. Sharp as ever, Nicholas is perfectly efficient. Nicholas, Tostin's second son, shows the schedule to the Viscount. The man hesitates to look, admitting his life as a Margrave is always on the line. The Margrave shuts him down. He says if things go wrong, use criminals as fodder. Soldiers and citizens are the nation's true power. The Viscount nervously laughs it off as a joke. Nicholas warns against baiting the Viscount. The Margrave's self-pity makes him ready to kill his own son, enraging the man. Asked about his heirs, Nicholas confirms. The Margrave sends word to Nicholas's father and Roger. Nicholas agrees, while the Margrave looks skyward, hoping Ed and Luca can resist the curse. In a massive flower clearing, an elf girl laughs beneath a giant blooming tree, sensing something's definitely off. She smiles and looks ahead, sensing the crystal's power as petals swirl around her. She spots a magic crystal and wonders who made it, looking out at a massive fenced-off forest marked by a sign. Twisted trees arch over slime-slick ground as centipedes crawl and swarms of insects infest the air. The Viscount grips a knife to defend his home, blaming his idiot son for their ruin. The confused boy screams as his carriage plunges off the cliff, smashing through the fence. The slime morphs into the Viscount's son, claiming he's not evil but will never forgive Edward. A beaming girl points ahead, humming a tune. She taps the keys, sounding out Do, Re, and Me. She smiles, tapping to the beat. Beside him, a dark-haired boy points and makes a sound. She hits the next fa key as the MC spawns air blocks with wind magic. MC and the girl sit on the floor while a group chats behind them. Archie hits the keys and the boy makes a sound. Archie mashes keys as the boy makes noise, but the system fails fast. He's already dizzy, wishing fusion could make the keys play themselves. Archie turns to his shocked brother. The MC knows the feeling, picturing himself puppeteering a tiny human. He remembers a smiling man's promise. One day his body will click, shattering magic limits and unlocking skills. Archie's thrilled as the pace quickens. The MC tells her the keys are making sound now, clearing Archie's head and making him never want to stop magic training. A man orders the kids to be quiet now that Tostin's arrived. Clutching his head, the boy frantically apologizes to both Tostin and Ars. Shirt Guy says it's fine since he's leaving. He thanks Edward and Sonia, and the smiling pair understands. Toasting exits the forest cabin. Luca asks Edward about their talk, and he reveals his grandfather is visiting next. Lucas asks if Grandpa's on Margrave business, and Archie's hyped. Edward confirms he's managing the harvest while Sonia clears the table. MC watches Grandma closely, joyfully chanting her name. Edward laughs, saying she's safe with her grandpa. Sony calls it sudden, but the man blames the monsters. He recalls the rocky forest. Magic forest monsters are invading, forcing local wildlife to flee. Edward suspects they're running from something. Monsters are magic-wielding humanoids, human silhouettes with white eyes and mouths. Magical beasts wield magic. The dark dog lowered its head. MC fears for the village as a terrified Archie warns that something bad is coming. Luca hugs his sister as Edward smiles, promising the sacred tree wards off monsters. Since the village's founding, only forest wolves have ever appeared. Night falls, Edward reassures the girl and tells the kids to wash up and head to bed. Night falls, Edward and Sonia drink, hoping the old man's arrival goes smoothly while Sonia frets over rumors of magical beasts. Worried, Sonia says she just wants to live with everyone in peace. Edward agrees. They turn to Luke, yawning in the center of the room. The kids are still awake. Luca holds a sobbing girl as the MC explains a monster story spooked her. MC apologizes for wandering out late, leaving Edward and Sonia stunned. Edward scoops up Luke, laughing off the apology. Their family and late nights are allowed. Sonia holds Art, agreeing that together she'll never be afraid. Raising a finger, he grins and promises the kids he'll handle any monster. Archie agrees. She smiles, claiming her brother will protect them, but her furious dad snaps that he's the real protector. Luquette asks if the bottle is alcohol. Edward confirms, explaining it's a magic herb brew with a magical taste. At dinner, Luca asks about the magic taste again. Dad explains that's just how mana-infused food feels. That wolf tasted magical. This weird coated beast is basically pre-fried meat. The boy watches his dad pour a drink. Edward says it feels amazing and takes a sip, loving the feeling. He sips it for a taste, recalling similar sake kits back in Japan. A bottle and glasses slam onto the table, shocking everyone except the oblivious MC. The four stare in shock at the mysterious objects. Luca wakes up and asks what they are. He's stunned as a bottle and stacks manifest on the table the moment he remembers them. Edward recovers and asks what they're for. MC says they're for drinking. Smiling, the man warns these magic creations will soon vanish. He thanks the boy for helping Sonia and vows to use them, while his mom calls him amazing. He ignores his own words, stunned by how he pulled it off. He pictured a bottle of stacks, but only for a split second. Luke wonders if this is the skill the priest mentioned, the power to bring fantasies to life. Why now is it the familiar image? No, it's not. Suddenly his head starts spinning. Ars demands her own stack, leaving the table in total shock. Tearing up, she points to herself, demanding her stack and wondering why she's all alone. Edward and Sonia turn to Luke. He clutches his head in terror, finally seeing the truth. He clutches his head. Luca wants to make another for Arch, but he's got no clue how. The girl tearfully asks for her stack again. Her brother tells her to stop crying, he'll find another way. MC thrusts his hands forward, manifesting a glowing orb as everyone stares. His father grins, wondering if Luke is squeezing mana, while Sonia stares in stunned disbelief. Mom realizes Luke made the church stone. Suddenly a smooth ball appears. Everyone smiles at the ball. The boy calls it a win and asks the chef if it passes. She reaches for the glowing orb, calling it beautiful and thanking her brother. Light blasts the table, revealing a kneeling man with pointed ears. He grabs the stone with a grin while everyone stares in shock. A man appears, checks the ball and grins. It's perfect. Luca stares in shock while his parents glare. How did she just appear out of nowhere? Sonia grabs Archie, her chair crashing down. Edward raises a fist, demanding answers. Archie wails, reaching for her stolen stone. Night falls. A girl in a dress stands before a massive, lush tree. She looks up, asking Sirotry why it called her so late. He's clearly overjoyed, and she wonders what's happening. A pillar of light erupts, revealing the same stranger from Luke's house. She stares in confusion. Stunned by the girl's appearance and insane power, she mistakes her for an elf before quickly realizing she's wrong. She recognizes the high elf as he gestures upward, declaring the tree sacred. Eureka, a half-elf priestess of Sarah's sacred tree, bows in greeting, but the elf cuts the formalities short. He tells Ulrika Sierra is a beautiful name, but warns the tree's true name is its life force. As priestess, she must guard him. Ulrika agrees, asking why he's here. The elf utters one name, Alia. She's baffled. Smiling, the elf goes by Alia to avoid a long intro. Ulrika agrees and asks why he's here. Alia confronts the girl, demanding to see her new item. She questions him again. Elf apologizes to Ulrika for her warped sense of time, while he notes the object is round. She catches on this as the mysterious stone the MC conjured. Ulrika apologizes. The stone's already with the headman since the Margrave takes everything. Alia's disappointed. Ulrika asks about the stone's power. Alia raises a finger, ready to spill the secret. Alia smiles, admitting the stone is empty. Ulrika finally gets it. The elf reveals the only thing special here is the person who made it. Ulrika stares in shock, reeling at the elf's claim that he was created. Alia touches his temple, sensing a spark. A pillar of light strikes and he vanishes. Ulrika touches the sire tree to track Miss Relia. She wonders where he went, then closes her eyes. She's found him. She finds Luke's house, backed by hills and trees, with a roof tree standing out front. She bolts, telling the tree she's gone, while Ulrika prays the elf doesn't cause a scene. Sonia clutches a terrified Archie while Edward levels his sword at the elf holding the stone. The table is trashed. Edward demands to know if Alia's an elf and what he wants, vowing to protect his family. He's rattled, he didn't even see him move, it must be magic. Alia flashes the stone with a grin, revealing he followed its trail right here. Archie weeps, claiming the stone her brother made. Mom tries to calm her, but Luca demands it back, leaving Alia confused and Edward stunned. He stares down the elf, who smirks back wickedly. He knows this is the guy. Alia rushes down, grabs the boy's head, and asks if he made the stone. Edward charges, ordering the elf to release his son or die, but the elf effortlessly swats the blade aside. Alia raises his hand as a broken sword tip streaks past, apologizing for the scare. Edward stares in shock, broken sword in hand. Alia warns him not to provoke the half-elves, they're out of his league. The elf glares at the stunned man. Don't provoke them, or the entire nation dies. Luca glares at the elf, drops his name, and asks if he's really an elf like Dad said, leaving Edward stunned. Alia kindly confirms he's an elf and introduces himself. Luca immediately fires off another question. Luca demands to know why Alia is terrifying his family. Alia is stunned, while the family watches in terror. The boy blames the elf for his sister's tears. Arch stares at his brother and weeps. He tells the elf he's officially pissed. The elf glares back, dead serious. Alia bowed to fate and apologized, his curiosity driving him to rush in blindly. The elf hands Archie her stone ball. She happily takes it and says thanks. Alia smiles, claiming he didn't mean to scare them, and asks how to show remorse. Luca and his father turn dead serious. Exhausted and gasping, Uraka sprints to Luke's house and rushes straight to Mr. Alia. Ulrika enters to find Alia on his knees begging for forgiveness. Luke says the pose fits his guilt, and Edward greets his sister. Edward points at the bent Alia, asking Ulrika if she knows the elf. She's stunned, while Archie grins and plays with a stone. Ulrika reveals even the king bows to this high elf, leaving everyone stunned. Edward, Sanya, and Ulrika kneel by Alia, begging for forgiveness. The elf stops them, claiming he's the one who should apologize, while Ars and Lucas watch in. Luke stares at the high elf, shocked. He never knew his sister was a half-elf. They sit. Larica apologizes to the boy with her eyes shut to avoid scaring the villagers. Alia explains that rumors made people fear elves, but they're actually peaceful. Ulricha regretfully asks if Luke's afraid, but he shuts her down instantly. He tells the drinking high elf Alia isn't scary, they just need to talk. Alia smiles. The high elf grins, offering his hand and asking to be friends, leaving everyone stunned. Archie grins at his stone. Alia calls it an amazing crystal, but Luke says it's just a useless rock. Alia snaps that being powerless doesn't mean useless. He calls it a masterpiece, leaving Luca stunned. The elf bolts up, startling everyone and ranting about the magic crystal. Alia gestures wildly, rambling about the crystal. The group stares in shock until Luca tells him to wrap it up. The elf starts the demonstration. Light glows in Alice's hands and a sword manifests. Blushing, Alia reveals her new wooden sword, warning it cost a massive amount of mana. The elf snaps, sword raised, ranting that object creation is the hardest magic, but Ulricha cuts him off. Alia glares, asking what she wants since he just started. The family thanks him for the detailed breakdown. Most can't grasp an elf's mind. Her massive info dump leaves everyone stunned. Mocking their hype, the elf restarts his speech. Alia cringes, handing Edward an apology sword. Edward thanks him. Edward tells the smiling elf he'll buy him from the headman for his bow skills. Luke's mom says honesty at church would have been easier, and Luca apologizes. Alia beams, asking her dad if it's true. He's thrilled and thanks them. MC smiles at the elf, shocked they ever feared him. Under the night sky, Edward calls it a night and Ulrika agrees, it's time to go. A carriage speeds through the hills. Inside, an old man fixes his tie, noting the Viscount's son's funeral went well. His maid agrees, calling him master. Adjusting her glasses, she reports she's still unsure if the Viscount's family is behind Edward's incident. She won't let her grandkids sign a death contract, but he insists it's noble law. She resists anyway, and he blames her stubborn half-elf blood. Caroline's a half-elf head maid in glasses. She runs the house and is sister to Ulraka, Tram's priestess. She's his mother-in-law and Edward's grandma, and their relationship is complicated. Christopher reveals his wife is Caroline's daughter from a past marriage, now wed to Tram's village head. She's posing as his wife and Luke and Archie's grandma. Caroline says they've arrived, and Christopher halts the carriage. Christopher and Caroline exit the carriage. He asks for a head count, and she reveals there are 200 of them. He calmly notes there's more than expected as an armed horde swarms them. A bearded Viking saves the girl and gold for later. ordering his men to slaughter the old man first. Christopher wonders if attacking nobles is brave or stupid. Caroline's sure it's just stupid. The chief ignores their status, points his blade, and orders the charge. Christopher's about to show them why they're nobles as magic erupts from his hand. A flash blasts the leader back, sending his sword flying. He coughs on the ground, wondering if it's magic. Stunned he survived, Christopher tells the groveling man to look up. The man claims killing 200 people with magic is impossible, but Christopher just points behind him. Christopher's magic slaughtered his men. Staring at the bodies, he asks in shock what it is. Christopher says it's all magic. Paralyzed, he stares at the corpses. Carolina adjusts her glasses, dead serious. That blow felt like hitting solid stone, more than enough to wipe everyone out. He collapses with a nervous laugh. Caroline reveals magic is the aristocrat's true power, and Christopher warns it can wipe out an entire army. Christopher grimly warns that nobles are just monsters protecting their loot. The carriage leaves. Christopher thought the Viscount sent them, but they're actually here because of that magic forest monster. Caroline reports refugees fleeing monsters, but Christopher reveals he first heard of the beasts a decade ago when the war with the Viscount began. He's heading for Trame Village. If there's no bounty on him, why is he still alive? Caroline adjusts her glasses. They can't find him. This monster hides well, learns fast, and is a total nightmare. Christopher asks about the World Tree Priestess, but Caroline says no, elves and half-elves are too weak for the job. She claims only a high elf fits the role since they built the World Tree. Christopher asks what makes it different from other sacred trees. The World Tree needs a priestess to activate, explaining the monster chaos. Caroline says regular elves are useless, they're powerless until a high elf appears. As the carriage rolls, Christopher predicts a powerhouse might appear. Caroline calls it absurd, but he insists anything is possible. Bathing together, Ars admires Luca's creation, a sparkling mana ball packed with water, fire, air, and earth. Mana shifts the ball's color: blue water, red fire, yellow air, brown earth. Archie's hyped, but Luca raises his hand. He suddenly clutches his chest, gasping in pain as Archie watches, confused. Luke's chest is aching, but it's not just physical. Now his magic flows smoother than ever. Archie tearfully begs her brother not to get sick, but Luca just smiles back. Luca says her smile keeps him healthy. As the stone he holds begins to glow, he vows to protect her happiness forever. Luca reveals he's her brother, but stops short, leaving Archie staring. He asks his sister if she heard the voice, but Archie heard nothing. She'd never admit it, but losing Luca's attention would break her. Now Luca hears the voice again, and it's triggering buried memories. Ark gets shocked by the voice. Lucas calls it creepy, and Mom orders them out right now. Black sludge spills from a mana clot in the void. It hits the ground by the wheel, finds a host, and sinks in. The Viscount's heir barks demands at the Margrave, pointing aggressively with a dagger in hand. He obeyed noble law for now, but nothing stops him from crushing their family later. He apologizes to his son just to survive. A voice asks why he's here, insisting that man and woman are the ones to blame. The clot takes human shape, feeding on its wearer's despair to evolve. It absorbs mana, morphs into a monster, and finally sprouts a hand. Now human, he surveys the land, swearing his would-be killers will answer for everything. Deep in the hills, Lucas crafts two dolls that move on their own. One holds a stone, the other hoes the ground. The MC gets serious, telling them he needs more training. Luke recalls his dad's warning, don't make too many clay dolls or people will freak out. Glancing at his hoe, everything clicks. Recalling his mana ball, he channels energy into his hoe to supercharge it. Luca strikes the earth and his hoe snaps. He thought mana channeling was easy, but it's a total maze. Dad was right, the material is shifting. He remembers watching his father train with Ars, praising Ilya's sword. It's so sharp it can even slice through magic. Luca watches the guys approach. They wave, and one asks why he's there. Luca joins the processing team today, and the man in the hat is shocked he's the one who made that stone. He's uneasy and confused, but his dad forces him to greet Adam and Jonathan. Luca greets Aiden and Jonathan, the man in the hat. MC stares in disbelief, they're totally ordinary. Jonathan warns the herb drains mana, one mistake and Aden's sucked dry. Aden asks if he's for real. Clutching his head, the boy regrets not being polite while his father stares. Wait, says that he probably should have told them, is dialogue thought. Fearing abandonment, Edward needs family watching his back 24/7. Edward pats his son's head, warning him not to overdo it. Luca smiles, promising he's got this. Luca grabs a stone. Coating it in mana is easy, but infusing the inside is way harder. Patterns glow in the stone. Channel mana through these paths to massively buff your gear. Staring at the stone, he realizes it works like amplification. He knows his body perfectly, so there's no need to search for a way. The stone cracks, he realizes he pumped in way too much mana. Mana floods from the stone's cracks, he's about to blow. Stone in hand, fist clenched, he coats his arm in mana for double reinforcement. Luca waves, rippling the air with wind magic to silence the area. Water swirls around the rock he encased to keep the shards from flying. The stone blasts into shards, he squints, tracking the debris. He raises his hand and sighs, admitting he was terrified as the winds finally die down. Only stone shards remain in Luke's wet hand. He's gotta watch his mana. Pain seizes his chest. Eyes wide with terror, he clutches his heart. Teeth clenched, he fights the pain but finally collapses. He plummets screaming, but hands snatch him from behind, stopping the fall. Luke turns to thank his savior, but he's stunned by who he sees. His two clay dolls pull him up, but he's stunned. He never gave them an order. Dolls loom over him. Luca flashes two fingers and the boy realizes he never gave them an order. Arms raised, the dolls sway, forever obedient to Luke. He stares. After so many mental commands, he probably ordered his own capture without even knowing. Luca spots silhouettes from the grass. It's Tostin, his mom, and Archie, and they're all stunned to see him. Ars is crying for no reason. Seeing her sad face, the boy promises her everything's fine. Big brother is finally here. Luca cuts off mid-sentence, gasping as the chest pain returns. He's clueless, but he can feel it. Something is moving inside him. A voice begs Luca to stay, sounding like a team calling him. He winces, eyes shut tight. His worried dad rushes over, grabbing his shoulder to check on him. Masking the pain, Arcee claims he's just tired. His sister lunges into his arms, sobbing and begging him not to lie. Luca's stunned. She tearfully admits she just wants her brother safe and healthy. Sonia says Archie cried while visiting her brother. Edward realizes she sensed his illness. The boy reassures his whimpering sister that everything's fine. Edward tells Luca to rest since work is nearly finished. Stunned, Luca asks why. Tostin announces Callisto, the Margrave's rep, has arrived. Luca asks if Grandpa's here and Ars is thrilled. A crowd gathers asking if Callisto's really back. Edward confirms it, but they're suspicious. Why is he early? Did something go wrong? Edward warns that a monster is driving magical beasts straight toward the village. Luke's dad warns the crowd they've spotted 100 wolves, leaving everyone in total shock. They compare themselves to forest wolves, fearing their massive numbers. Our hero stands grimly with his family, his mind fixed on the magical beasts. Edward calms the crowd, promising he and Callisto will solve the case if they just stop panicking. Archie hugs Luca, vowing to protect him. Luca thanks her, regretting he didn't say it first as the sun crests the mountains. Christopher and Caroline hop out after a safe trip. He tells her to act old and she asks for the disguise. He smiles, offering to apologize to her real husband, but Caroline says they have a deal. She then tells him to go change. Caroline and Christopher disguise themselves as an elderly couple. A woman holds a suitcase as Christopher tells Luca and Ars to wait, then laughs. At the bell tower, Chris struggles to play commoner, but Caroline says it suits him. Horned, wide-eyed wolves with drooling mouths prowl the forest. Village ahead, they've provoked magic beasts, and one flicks its tongue, ready to strike. The long-haired beast laughs and agrees, standing by the wolves as liquid drips from his hand. Christopher and Caroline knock on Luke's door. Christopher announces Grandpa is here, while Caroline asks how they're doing. Luca welcomes the grandparents, Edward waves, and Archie's thrilled. Callisto arrives for the Margrave. Luca spots the resemblance as Callisto asks if they remember him. Luca doubts Caroline's a grandma, she looks more like a church sister. She tells the kids they've grown up fast. MC questions Grandma's long ears, shocking Edward and Sonia. Callisto realizes the secret's out as Caroline reveals she's a half-elf, meaning they carry elven blood too. Edward and Sonia lock eyes. Archie asks if she's an elf and Luca laughs just a little bit. Edward admits she's their great-grandmother and the elven blood is real. He was stunned too. Suddenly, his bloodline flashes in his mind. Luca's dad smiles, offering the exhausted pair a meal after their long walk. Callisto admits he's starving, eyeing a candlelit table piled with food. They dig in. Callisto pats the MC's head while Caroline eyes RJ. Callisto smiles, downing a glass of fresh monoliquor. Edward explains the magic hasn't faded yet, and Callisto admits he'd walk miles for a taste this good. Grandpa eyes the stack, demanding to know where they found this master-tier glass. Edward tells Callisto Luca made them. The grandfather whips around, staring at his grandson in shock. Luke's dad reveals the boy accidentally conjured them. Callisto snaps, making glass isn't as easy as lighting a fire. The MC watches in shock. Grandpa explains even simple materials take massive effort, and Edward finally agrees. A voice inside says he barely got it for his birthday, leaving him stunned. Still hunting for the voice, Callisto interrupts, demanding to know how he built those stacks with 0 mana. Is it even magic? All eyes are on Luke and his grandpa. He admits he's clueless. He just thought of a stack for his dad, and they suddenly appeared. Callisto challenges Luca, conjuring a water ball. Luca recognizes the basic magic and mimics it perfectly. Grandpa's stunned. The boy makes it look easy with 0 distortions. Callisto's had enough, dropping a water ball into the stack. Luca agrees, then pops the balloon. Before the MC can even let go, Callisto and Caroline spring from the table, eyes locked on Luca in shock. Caroline asks how, but her grandpa cuts in, stunned that the magical water just vanished. Confused by their shock, he gives them a straight yes. Edward and Sonia eye Callisto, Caroline in fright, while a clueless Archie watches and eats. Carolina smiles at her talented grandson, while Callisto pats Luca's head and introduces his granddaughter. Edward notes Mr. Alia recognized Luke's talent, and Sonia agrees. Callisto asks about Mr. Alia. Edward reveals he's the High Elf intruder, and everything clicks. He stays calm, then he and Caroline demand High Elf answers again. Caroline demands answers while Grandpa hunts for the High Elf. Edward tries to play peacemaker, but a furious Callisto orders Tom to stay out of it. Luke's dad reveals Alea has an elven dream, making him completely off-limits. Luke asks about elven dreams. Grandpa says it's when elves sync their mana with the world. Beside Archie, Caroline explains elves sleep for decades without food, and high elves last even longer. Everyone stands. Edward predicts he'll wake up in a month, right when Callisto arrives. Callisto demands to know how he knows. Edward remembers Luca's ball. Rules say the Margrave gets it, so they'll ask Callisto in a month about giving it to Mr. Alia instead. Luca wonders if Alia's sleeping until the big day. High elves make no sense, but Dad figures he couldn't wait a month and just crashed. Night falls. Grandpa says wait until morning, and Edward jokes he'll never get Alia awake. Callisto glares, schooling Edward on manners. He asks if he forgot the elf rumors, and Edward stops to think. Carolyn warns, don't provoke the half-elves. Humans are no match, and their rage will destroy the entire country. Caroline and Callisto stare in shock at the smiling family. Edward remembers, assuring them Mr. Alia is fine. Luke calls the high elf weird but good, while Grandpa wonders what's wrong. He turns serious. Manners are manners. Callisto knows there's no smoke without fire. Rumors have roots, kindness or not. A dark figure in a raincoat lurks by the massive tree. Never anger high elves, no one survives. A girl grins from the brush, muttering about a bow and ball. Callisto and the villagers fortify their defenses, building tall wooden towers to watch for monsters. They stack stone walls and plant defensive stakes to stop the assault. They'll buy time. Callisto barks orders to his son and the hammer guy. MC points to the animated screen while Archie and a girl watch. Nearby, Luca toys with magic, earning happy smiles from the girls. Luca helps with chores, hauling carrots for his mom while Archie assists with laundry. Life was finally peaceful. A church stands in the village center. Suddenly, a massive boom echoes everywhere. Peace shatters as the beast alarm sounds. High on the tower, a man hammers out the signal. Callisto, Edward, and a stranger face the crowd. Edward steps up, telling everyone to stay calm. The crowd turns hostile as Edward warns that magical beasts will slaughter the village. Archon, Luca, and their mom are cornered. Edward's already made his move. Edward rallies the crowd, declaring they have Callisto, the Margrave's elite magician. These beasts won't scare them anymore. Sword raised high, Edward rallies the people to trust him. This is his home. The sword ignites and grows massive as Luke's father vows to protect the village. The crowd erupts, chanting Edward and Callisto's names. Edward shouts that the Holy Father and sister are right there, ready to heal anyone who gets hurt. Edward asks Archie if he looks cool, and Archie smiles, saying the sword is awesome too. Callisto's stunned by the mana-soaked blade and demands answers. Edward laughs, revealing Mr. Alia forged it. Shocked, Callisto calls it impossible, asking if the High Elf forged the blade himself. Edward grins, stunned he can finally take on a magician while his family watches. Grandpa points at the blade, denying a High Elf would ever forge it. Edward insists it happened, but Callisto shuts him down. Callisto warns Edward to never show the sword to anyone. Terrified, Edward obeys. Callisto summons Edward and Luca. Father and son agree, but Mom is stunned. Terrified, she asks Edward if Luca's coming, while Ars cowers, calling Grandpa scary. Grandpa takes Luca while Edward promises arrow support, telling his wife not to worry. Luca steps up, but Sonia protests. He's only 10. Facing his mom and Archie, he smiles and vows to protect his family and the village. His sister and mom calm down, smiling back at him. Luca promises no trouble. His mom and Archie buy it while Edward eyes Callisto. Defenders man the barricades with swords and bows as Luca drops off a fresh supply of arrows. Jonathan inspects the arrows. He's safe, but something's off. Luca asks what's wrong. Jonathan grabs a bundle of arrows, but even this stash isn't enough for everyone. Luca signals Jonathan to relax. These arrows are meant for them. The MC bolts to craft arrows for the team, leaving Jonathan stunned. Jonathan checks the boy's mana, but Luca's confused. He draws energy from the air, not his own pool. They're probably just babying him. Roger reports to Edward and Callisto. Grandpa praises the scouts and Edward asks for updates. Roger reports the beasts stopped at the forest exit with reinforcements, leaving Callisto and Edward stunned. Two magical beasts stand together. Edward asks why these territorial rivals are suddenly allies. Edward asks Callisto's take. Grandpa suspects they're being controlled. A dark silhouette watches from the wooded hill, raising its hand. The sentry screams from the tower. The beasts are moving. Below, the crowd watches in terror. Edward turns to Callisto, who heard everything. Roger's behind me. Callisto says we move now. Roger faces a crowd of archers ready to slay magical beasts. Edward orders non-stop fire on the beasts. He and Callisto will handle the finishing blows. Magical beasts charge. Roger and the archers take aim. Edward points his sword and orders fire, raining a volley of arrows into the beasts. Arrows pierce the beasts, but they keep charging as a dark figure looms above. The beast on the rock stays still. They haven't even noticed it. It laughs, mocking the brainless commoners, while Callisto and Edward hold back. Edward's face hardens. He looks back, but the creature's vanished. Callisto asks what's wrong. The woods are empty. Edward thinks he's seeing things. Callisto stares, but Edward claims it's nothing. Black liquid slithers through the grass. It's the creature that vanished from the rock. It slithers through the grass, spooking a mouse, then suddenly locks onto a man on the hill. Our hero clenches his fists on the hill, rooting for his family while the monster stares, confused by this weirdo. The boy stares ahead, oblivious. The creature laughs, doesn't matter, and crawls toward the building. The liquid slips past unnoticed. Suddenly, the creature locks on. At Luke's door, his mom holds Archie next to another girl. Worried, she asks Aunt Sonia if they'll survive. Sonia promises they're strong enough, and Ars agrees. Black liquid stretches, a mouth forms, and he recognizes Sonia. The monster glares at Luke's mom, calling her the woman who ruined his life. Liquid won't forgive her, but the trio spots a creature and freezes in terror. The monster turns human, vowing to toy with her until nothing remains. It calls Sonia's name and taunts her. The girl screams, clutching her aunt while Archie hides in terror. Sonia stares back, horrified. This can't be real. Luca whips around, eyes wide. He's got a bad feeling. He heads home, knowing he has to reach his mom and sister. Chest pain strikes again. He collapses, coughing, catching Callisto and Edward's attention. They stare in terror. Dad shouts his name while Callisto asks what's wrong. Flushed with a pain he can't explain, he pushes forward to reach his mom and Archie. Something's hijacking Luke's body. Edward rushes to his writhing son, demanding answers from a baffled Callisto. Callisto smirks, realizing it's impossible. Contract magic is already taking hold, and Edward warns that Luke is deathly ill. Eyes shut, he focuses his mana, hunting for the source of this mysterious spell. MC blasts him with mana, light flashing before his eyes. A voice orders Luca to get ready. He recognizes it, but it doesn't matter. He can sense the entire manner. MC springs up and bolts, leaving his dad and grandpa shouting after him. Edward's stunned. How's your son so fast? Grandpa orders Tom to go. He'll handle this alone. The boy sprints, leaving massive air rings in his wake. Aiden angrily demands answers, but Luke sprints past, knocking him down and sending his sword flying. MC sprints home to find a monster cornering his mom and two girls, his body moving on pure instinct. Luca questions his bond with his friends as the beast glares at Sonia. MC stomps the creature's head, leaving Sonia and the girls stunned. The creature's head warps and he's shocked. It's a slime. Luke saved them. The mother and girl cheer his name while Archie screams for his brother. The beast collapses, clutching its face in shock. Luca towers over it, warning the monster to never touch his mother or sister again. Luke looks down to see the creature's touch dissolving his shoes, and one falls right off. The monster stands with a grin, calling the kid strange, but he can't see his face. The slime screams and lunges. The boy panics, realizing he can't touch it. The creature reaches for the bow, but Dad flashes in and severs its hand in one swing. He stoked his dad saved him, while Sonia, Arch, and his niece celebrate Edward's arrival. Writhing in pain, the beast curses Edward by name. Edward glares back, recognizing his enemy instantly. Edward shields his son, claiming the Viscount's heir is long dead, but the beast disagrees. Only Edward, the Margrave's son, is marked for death. Luke's father doesn't know how, but he's become a monster, while Luke recalls that Edward is the Margrave's son. Edward snaps, roaring that monster or noble, nobody touches his family. The beast silences Edward and strikes. Edward readies his sword while Luca conjures a spell to protect his father. The monster devours the MC's clay dolls, screaming in shock, "What are these?" Furious, he orders the dolls to back off, screaming that he's an aristocrat. Edward lunges for the kill, shouting that his nobility died the moment he became this. Edward slashes the creature, spraying fluid as dolls spill from its body. Edward's crushing blow decapitates the beast. It screams his name as Sonia glares. Edward's here for his contract, the deal that gave him his family. With the monster's head on the ground, he turns to his son. Sanya watches calmly as Archie cheers for his cool dad and brother. Sanya and the girls head to Edward and Luke. Lucas smiles, reflecting on his brush with death. He questions his past life memories, fearing the truth will destroy his bond with his family. A voice echoes in his head, his soul is being replaced. His eyes snap to black. Luke targets his family with floating shards, leaving Edward paralyzed in shock. Edward spots the stone shells and panics, demanding to know what his son is doing. Sonia and Archie are stunned. Archie looks at her brother in sorrow, but Lucas stares back with zero emotion. His own clay dolls tackle him to the ground. Edward, stunned, his own magic just turned against him. Gasping on the ground, he clenches his fist, stunned by what he just did. His eyes fade, weeping he realizes he almost killed Ars. The crowd stares as a voice calls despair delicious. The severed head senses the boy's power, but can't remember a thing. Sword drawn, Edward confronts the head. Rebirth fried its memory. He's alive, but the head's female voice terrifies him as he struggles to understand. The head claims the noble and Slime are dead, leaving only her. Edward levels his sword, demanding her identity and the bow. The head chants Luke's name, calls it a perfect fit, then devolves into gibberish. Staring at the boy held by dolls, she claims no memory, but they're definitely linked to Luke. MC clutches his head in pain as the severed head turns into a woman, claiming his emotions taste delicious. Lucas stares in terror, questioning her identity. He recalls standing before this house in a past life, cars parked nearby. He clutches ribbon boxes, gifts for his mom, dad, and sister. Big box, small box, 3 share a birth date, but one date is different. MC smiles, saying his dad always wanted this sake set. He'll love it, but Luca realizes these are memories from his past life. He excitedly tells his parents the news, then asks about the strangers in the house. A dark-haired girl sits with his parents, it's their neighbor. She smiles, welcoming him home as Rue. He glares, demanding why she's in his house, but she jokes his reaction is killing her, as his mom mentions he's a high schooler. The girls heard all about him from his parents, and his mom says he hasn't changed a bit. Her smile vanishes. She points, demanding silence as her mother's head tilts to the side. Shocked, he asks his parents what's wrong, dropping his boxes to the floor. He asks the girl what's wrong with his parents. They're frozen, eyes turned pure white. He screams, asking what she did, but she says they're just knocked out. Smirking, she holds her chin and dares him to ask what she really did to his sister. He lunges at her, screaming for Kiri and what she did, but she just keeps smiling. She points to the sofa. He spins around, spotting his sister's legs poking out from behind. Shiri's out cold. MC rushes to her side, begging her to wake up. She sneaks up behind him, hand aimed, making him snap to attention. She reports the target is out cold with magic. Paralyzed, the MC demands to know what this magic is and why she needs it. She licks her lips, revealing she's a demon who feeds on human emotions like anger and love. He says magic and demons aren't fairy tales. She agrees, but reveals she's the only demon in this world. She leans in, grabs his shoulder, and smiles. She's been reborn. He's terrified. Elves vary in size, demons control minds, and high elves are their only natural enemy. The demon asks if he knows their anti-monster spell and offers to reveal it. The curse forces him to kill everyone he loves. She remembers a high elf who admired human strength, but his soul was defined by that curse. She reveals a terrifying dark demon, a mass murderer known as the Demon King. Demons swarm to feast on his pain. She is their true face. The Demon King slaughtered them like pests. A hand reaches out, terrifying the demons. Jiying absorbed her fallen ally's power to be reborn, and he demands to know why his family. Licking his lips, the demon claims nothing tastes better than pure despair. She tells the parents she chose the kindest family because the stronger the love, the deeper the despair, then glares at Chiri. She asks what's worse than death by family. He's confused, but she raises her hand, and suddenly he loses control of his body. She wonders how a family killer's despair tastes. He grabs his sister and starts strangling her. His hands move against his will. He begs her to stop, but the demon reveals the curse. The deeper his love, the stronger his urge to kill. Trembling, he chokes his sister. The demon calls him a twisted soul and orders him to kill everyone he loves. He fights the curse until his grip fails, tearfully calling his sister precious. A scream echoes from the house. Back turned, a girl calls him gorgeous. She says even a weakling fought the curse. It calls it sweet. She mocks his struggle, but even after a direct hit, she doesn't flinch. Fists still pressed against the demon, she reveals he wields the holy sword's power. Fuming, the MC storms in. The demon claims ignorance as black liquid leaks from her eyes, amazed a cornered human can do this. The demon reels as cracks spiderweb across her body, mocking her fragile form for falling to a needle-sized holy sword. She grabs his tear-stained face, refusing to let go as blood drips to the floor. A tiny onion looks up. Sonia and Edward smile, greeting their son. He tries to speak, but only noise comes out. He's desperate to understand what's happening to him. Mom cradles Luke as he realizes the truth. He's been reincarnated as a baby. He remembers her touch and her final plea not to leave. Now he knows she's dead. He realizes she killed him too. Shaking with tears, he collapses into his mother's arms. Visions of his family flash by. He apologizes, glad they're safe. Sonia, holding Luca, asks why he's crying while Edward watches his son with concern. Sonia tells her son to smile, so Edward pulls goofy faces and makes weird noises to entertain him. The boy smiles at his parents, finally feeling their love, but a voice whispers about a twisted soul as his eyes turn pitch black. Lucas pummels his mother's face, leaving his father stunned. Why the sudden violence? Lucas just smirks, recalling the demon's words. The demon girl's smile flashes in his mind. Once Chris wakes, the memories return. MC realizes the curse, a drive to kill everyone he loves. His worried mom asks if he's hungry, but Edward snaps his fingers and tells Luca to watch. Eyes clearing, the boy watches his dad conjure water. Flying water is fun magic, he says. Sanya's relieved her husband is okay. The boy wonders, is magic real? He realizes the girl's curse is just magic, demon magic used for mind control. He can finally resist the curse. Edward readies his blade by the demon's head, screaming for Luke to wake up as his family rushes to his side. The demon head grins, sticks out her tongue, and asks if he remembers their bond. Everyone surrounds the MC as he clutches his head, pinned by dolls. Edward begs his son to hold on while the demon girl cackles. She calls him by his past life name, craving his tasty emotions. He glares, realizing meeting her was a curse. Eyes shut in his crib, Luke wonders if he can break the curse alone. He's tried everything. He clenches his fists, focusing hard on the mana within. His eyes snap open to a bird's-eye view as mana and spirits fuse into godlike power, making him wonder if vanishing is the only way to protect his loved ones. He envisions his father slaying forest wolves, hands scarred and blade dripping with blood. MC recognizes his father but is totally lost. Edward's face and eye are mangled as he screams for them to stay away from his family. Shadows close in. Sonia clutches a sobbing Arcia and screams for them to stay back. He realizes the girl is his sister as Mom begs Edward for help. They both break down, but he sees the future. His family is doomed and he won't die until he. Lying calm in his crib, the boy senses mana flowing through him. Parents flank the boy. Edward screams his name, and a figure looms behind. Edward and Sonia tense up as Luca senses his parents' mana. They are passing their power to him. Father grabs the kid's hand as the MC senses the Pope's foul mana through his world link, realizing this contract magic is a curse invading his body to overpower his own. Parents clutch their son, fight poison with poison. The curse devours his soul to grow stronger. He recalls the demon's vow, a piece of her stays forever. That's his final. Edward shuts his eyes. Nothing works. His father's spell can't break the curse, and he remembers the demon's warning. It feeds on his mind and soul. He gets it. He's trading his soul and burning his memories to supercharge the contract. Haunted by his death and the demon's warning that he'll kill everyone he loves, he can't break the curse, but a contract spell can supplement it. Bound by contract, he only feels for family. He stands there blankly, lost in thought, while Edward comforts Sonia over their son's missing smile. The boy pummels a dummy, vowing to use magic only for his family, as Edward warns him to stay balanced. He clutches his chest, the curse triggers, the contract resists, and he'll die alone, far from everyone he loves. Eyes shut, magic flares, the curse and contract fuse into a brand new power. Luca's vanishing, but his family is safe, protected by a new version of himself. Edward beams holding his son, Sonia smiles beside him. Behind them, the Holy Father grins. Luke is born, his parents weep for joy as Sonia kisses the little hero. Facing the demon's head, the boy remembers the curse. Everyone watches in fear as the demon confirms the truth. Smiling, the demon girl admits she's lost her memory, but sensing a piece of herself in him, she calls Luca Sweetrue. The demon reels from the hero's emotions as Edward swings his blade, screaming to know if she's torturing his son. Edward hurls his sword, burying it deep in the demon's skull. Dad screams his name as the boy clutches his head. Mom checks on Luke, the girls, and a doll standing nearby. He pants, eyes shut. His soul warps again as he snaps his black eyes open. Clay dolls pin him down again. He warns his family to stay back so he doesn't hurt them. Sonia bursts into tears. Her father panics, staring at his son and scrambling for a plan, while Luke's cousin breaks down too. Arch clenches her fists through tears, crying that her brother's hurting and she doesn't want to do this. He clutches his head, apologizing to Archie for making her cry instead of protecting her, but vows again that everything will be fine. Luca considers suicide to stop hurting his family. Recalling the power that slew the demon girl, he forges a holy sword with every drop of his mana. He's the radiant holy sword. Stabbing himself will obliterate both the boy and the curse. He fights the pain, knowing his death protects those he loves. He eyes his worried family, silently thanking them for their love. His sister blocks his path, tearfully begging him to stop. He tries to say goodbye, but she screams that they aren't finished yet. His sister's voice screams in his head again, shouting it's unnecessary, and Luca's losing it over the noise. Luke remembers warning Arca not to wake him. She stares at him, realizes he's leaving, and bursts into tears. Luca's in trouble and heading your way. The High Elf says trust him, but he needs backup. The elf tells him to wait. He snaps his eyes open, searching for the voice. Roots burst from the ground, snatching the boy into the air. He screams as his family stares in shock, his dad wondering where these roots even came from. A voice rings out, if you die, the fun's over. Luke and his family whip around toward the source. High Elf Aaliyah approaches with a yawn, admitting he sensed something in the boy but never expected a demon's curse. Hoisted by roots, the hero tells the elf he's ending it all. Aaliyah rushes in, begging Luca to stop, she won't lose her friend. He points at Luke, grinning as he reveals the curse can be broken. Luke is stunned. Aaliyah tells Luke they have everything to break the curse, while his family watches the elf's every move. Aaliyah reveals he's a high elf alongside the boy's family, stunning the mana users. The high elf takes Archie's hands, revealing only one person can contract with the world tree. Aaliyah smiles, revealing her powers can break Luke's curse. Stunned, Archie asks about her magic again. Edward asks the high elf about the world tree contract's meaning, while Aaliyah notes the kid is always climbing the massive sacred tree. Clutching her bunny, the girl unconsciously uses the tree's power for protection. The high elf reveals. To save my brother, Luca readies his axe. MC asks Arca if he senses his mana through the sacred tree. Aaliyah smiles, confirming it. Normally only high elves, the world tree's true guardians, can wield this power. Luke's parents are stunned. He can't believe a girl this elite was born in such a remote village. Aaliyah grips Archie's hands, revealing she's the world tree's new keeper. Archie stares back in shock. The high elf reveals an unguarded world tree, offering to help the girl sign its contract. Edward protests Archie's only two, but the high elf silences him. The choice is hers. She hesitates, watching her brother scream in pain as tree roots crush him. She breaks down in tears, but quickly resolves to save her brother.